Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talk About It Tuesday. I'm so excited to be here with you. I'm Tosca Di Matteo, founder of Tosca Coaching and Consulting, and I'm so excited to have Ashley Abdullah on the call with me today. Hello, Wala. So good to see you here. And I'm sure she'll be on in just a second. And today we are going to talk about the comeback. That's right. It's so important to feel inspired and to hear about people who have overcome adversity and challenges. And Ashley is the perfect person to talk to us today about comebacks. So, yeah, thank you. Oh my gosh, Ron, thanks for joining. And Jacob, thanks for joining. Excited today to talk about comebacks. And I'm going to be joined here by Ashley Abdullah, a great friend of mine, and just waiting for her to join. So we'll be, sharing kind of, oh, here she comes. And yeah, we're joining here. Awesome. Just waiting for Ashley to join here. She's in the room. Here we go. Hey. Hi, Ash.
Hi.
I'm like adjusting my camera now that I'm like on the top. You're on the bottom. Yeah, so we have some folks on already. So excited for the fan base that I'm sure will be coming on for you. So excited to see you here.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Yeah, and I was starting to say before you joined that I'm just so excited to have you on because we are just in such need of inspiration and stories of comeback because I think a lot of people right now are feeling like they're in some setbacks. Yeah. And it's only temporary.
That's the point. That is the biggest takeaway right there. Like we can all pack it up. It's only temporary. And life is full of highs, lows, mountains, but from both of us, we've climbed that mountain more than once, and we've gotten on the other side to be able to look back and be like, okay, that wasn't so bad. We got through this.
Yes, truth right there. And just for folks who are going to be watching live and also later, I'd love for you to share just a little bit about who you are, your background, your story, and some of the key kind of what you feel are comeback times in your life, just to give people a sense of why are you here to talk about comebacks, girl? Let us know.
I love it. Well, let me start. Full disclosure, you and I, we've known each other for a couple of years. We used to work together. You were at one point my boss at my previous company, but what I do, I'm a marketer. My background is in media. I started off born and raised in New Jersey, Southern New Jersey. And at the time after I had graduated college, I went to work for a media company that I was really, really excited about. I was always a big fan of. Ended up working there for 11 years. And originally in New Jersey, that's where I started off working in that company. And at a certain point, a few years in, I would say maybe about 6 years in, I was at a point in my life where I knew I was ready for a change. My family had sold the house that I was raised in. And in that selling and moving, all of my family had kind of dispersed to different parts of the country. My parents moved to North Carolina. My brother and sister moved with them. Another brother was getting married and starting his family. So everybody was like kind of starting these new chapters in their lives. And I was like, what am I going to do next? And I knew that I had always wanted to do some type of move. I always knew that I was going to move and live in a different place, but I didn't know where. A position opened up in Miami, Florida. And with $1 and a dream, I relocated to Miami by myself with no friends, no family, no contacts. I didn't know anyone. And to actually do a complete career change. At that point, I had gone into sales, same company, but in the sales division, which is something that I had never done before. And yeah, I landed in Miami, in a brand new city. It's a completely different culture, all new everything. Did that for about 2 years. And then from there, just went into the marketing industry, still within the same company, but different roles: product marketing, entertainment marketing, brand strategy for shows, you name it. Um, from there, I experienced a layoff, and you were definitely a big source of sage encouragement and wisdom all through that process. And recovered, went through that, came out on the other side, and got myself back out into the job market, found a new company where I'm still doing what I love and still practicing that skill set. So I find that this time right now, it's an interesting time for our country, for my friends, family, colleagues, where I relate very much to that 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 gut punch that's kind of served when you lose your job, and that sense of pride in what you do in your work. And I hate to say it, a lot of times we attach our identity to what we do, to that job. So when that happens, then you layer on a pandemic on top of it. I really feel for a lot of people that are going through so much hardship, and that's why I've reached out to so many of my friends, so many of my colleagues who are going through it. I try to offer insight into what I had to do, what steps I learned, and mistakes that I made, just to help whoever I can along the way, and just to shine a little bit of optimism. Hey, I know it may feel hard. I know may feel dark right now, but I've gone through it and I've come out on the other side. It's going to be fine.
Cheers to that. Cheers to the other side. I don't know what you're drinking over there, but uh, um, yeah, I mean, I love that you talk about just feeling like knowing that gut punch of, kind of getting laid off and what that does to you. And in those moments that you just felt such despair with that, right? Because I mean, I know it's like a roller coaster ride,
It definitely is.
um, in any transition. And you know, I kind of think of comebacks even as like constant reinvention and constant transformation. It's not like, I just want to set the stage, right? Like, it's not like, oh, the comeback is like you landed the job. It's almost like,
Exactly, that's not it at all, not it at all. And I think that's the biggest thing that I want people to understand, and that was one of the big learnings that I had to go through and experiencing. It's the comeback is not okay. It's not a validation point through some external source, such as a paycheck from a different employer or a
mm,
different company. It's going through that process, understanding your worth, your value, and your passion points and your mission. And your job is just one way that's exercised. And it's all of those things that make you uniquely you,
mm,
honing all of that, and pulling all of that together, and understanding that was your power all along.
mm.
That's the comeback.
Yes. It's like the comeback is every day. It's every minute that you get up from feeling knocked down, from every time you hear a no,
Yes.
but you keep pressing on like that. That kind of ties into like something that I talk about a lot, which is different ways of measuring success. Success, if we measure success from a setback as like I land my next job, we're not giving ourselves credit for all the transformation and all
Yes.
the milestones of wins along the way for our perpetual comeback, our everyday comeback.
Every
Yes.
day, every day, there's a new way to stand up for yourself, and a
Yes.
new way to assert your value, and just to, showcase your confidence and all of that. It should never be through some type of external source, because those change all the time, and those measures of success that you talk about, and a lot of that I have learned and come to appreciate through my conversations with you, redefining what those measures of success are. Because I feel like sometimes we are taught to measure our success in a lot of these superficial formats, such as it could be the job, or that promotion that you thought you were going to get and it just didn't work out. It could be something materialistic. Those are never, never, never supposed to be measures of success, because they change. They change all the time, and you change with it. It should always be something like standing up for yourself, or, you know, standing up for your values, or, you know, honing in a new skill, or, you know, how you want to feel empowered coming out of a particular situation. Changing that mindset and shifting what your measures of success are completely changes the game. It's a completely different game changer once you understand and master that.
And what was your journey to kind of understanding that?
Understanding the different, like, what my different measures of success.
Yeah, like how, or what, I mean, I guess what was your foundation, or how did
Good
you
point.
get to make that shift with yourself, you
Good
know?
point. So, how would I word it? I would say every time I've gone through either a major life change, or a decision that really kind of rocks you, or anytime where you just feel unsure. Sometimes things that just kind of rock your faith, or you just feel unsure and unsettled. I always go back to that refrain: you can never pour from an empty cup, right? So in those moments, or in those situations, immediately you have to recognize, okay, I'm not showing up as my whole self. So what are the things that I need to do, or what does one need to do to feel like your whole self? What makes you feel the most alive? What makes you feel joy and happy and energized? And for every person, the answer to that is different. But for me, I found throughout my process, throughout those rocky, bumpy bumps in the road, there were certain things that have always been consistent, even still to this day. And for me, it's always been my faith, my family, and things that just nurture my creativity and just that pique my curiosity. You'll always see me with books. You've seen my apartment. I've got bookshelves, and you name it. That's always been something that's just kind of centered me. I think I get that from my mother. Just spending time with my family, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Sometimes you just need, you know, a talk with your dad, or sometimes my mom just will just massage my head or braid my hair to make me feel better, or just a good laugh with my sister or my brothers or my friends. But also just making sure that I hold and fiercely protect that space for my faith. Those are the things, you know, my congregation and my relationship with God. Those are the things that I'm fiercely protective of, because that's always going to bring me back to feeling whole. And as long as I go back to those spaces, those sacred spaces, you know, with time, it could be, hey, one night I may need just one dinner or one phone conversation, or it could be a week. Those are the things that build me back up to that. That's what charges me back up. And that's how I can go back out and face whatever decision or situation completely whole in my authentic self.
I love that, and there's so many reasons why I love it. And the number one and by the way, hello to everybody who's been joining us, folks that I hope will be inspired by the comeback story of Ashley Abdullah. But what I want to say about what you just talked about was that one of the pieces of advice I'd give to my clients is come back to what brings you joy.
Yeah.
In the tiniest ways, in the biggest ways, whatever.
Yeah.
And especially in a situation of getting laid off, or choosing to leave, or choosing, you know, to reinvent yourself or transform, it's like when you feel lost in who you are, when you feel lost in where you're going, choose to spend time on those things that lift you up. And the doing will come. The motivation and desire to take action
That's
will
key.
come.
That is so key. I 100% agree with that. Always, and I would even like just add on to that, the things and the people that remind you of who you are and the stock that you come from, right? And in doing that, whether you know, I love how you're saying, don't worry about always focusing about, hey, like I need to do something right away. I think sometimes we tend to get caught up in, okay, what do I do? What do I do? I immediately go back to those those spaces that I protect, my faith, my family, you know, those spaces. And with that, just in doing that, then I say, okay, I need some type of schedule or routine that nurtures those areas, right?
Mm.
So immediately when I experienced my layoff, um, I wasn't so much obsessed with, okay, I need to set up a schedule of, you know, how many interviews and how many conversations. That came organically and naturally just through my friends and my contacts and my family and all of that. But I completely immersed myself into, you know, spending time with my family, my friends, those things that interested me, making sure that I was taking care of my health, working out. I was like, okay, I'm going to set a schedule. I'm going to work out 3 times a week. And I think it's really important to do some type of volunteer activity that
Mm.
nurtures one of those interests, or time with your friends or family, something that nurtures and fulfills
Mm.
that need or answers that purpose or that mission within you.
Mm.
Because in immersing yourself with that, you're taking your energy and that obsessive worry away from your situation and yourself, and you're throwing
Mm.
it into something productive. And in that alone is so cathartic, that it will pay dividends. And that's what happened in my case.
Yes, I love that. And I also know what paid you dividends in your journey of moving on to the next amazing adventure was the fact that you are just so good at relationships, so good at building them and maintaining them. So, talk about a little bit about your relationships and how that was huge for you in transitioning and your comeback.
Oh, I feel like that's like a whole, I could write a whole book on this alone, because there's so many things that I learned
Is that
just
something
through
you
that
want to
process.
commit to, by the way? The coach in me is like, you want to commit to
I know you'll hold me
that?
to it. Okay. So I'll say, let me first start off by this. Immediately when um, you go through those, and I don't want to just limit it to losing your job, right? Because it could be so many life
Mm.
experiences that really can throw you. It could be changes in your family. It could be changes in your health. You name it. Those are those types of things that really that throw you, that rock your
Mm.
confidence, that can rock your faith.
Mm.
So it's so important that I liked how you said relationships and not network
Mm.
and connections. I think it's so important to understand that difference.
Mm.
And especially for women, you think in terms of how do I nurture relationships? One of the things that always never organically sat right with me
Mm.
are these events that people try to say, hey, we need to help people or urge people to network. And I think the reason why that never sat so well with me and it never felt organic is because we live in a world right now that encourages this transactional
Mm.
type of relationship when it comes to networking. You and I have talked about that before. This type of transactional approach to, let me go somewhere, let me give you my business card, let me tell you my name or my title. And it's supposed to be some type of mutual reciprocity based on a
Mm.
transactional relationship. Men operate differently in the business world. We can all agree to that. But for women, and particularly for me, especially going through just recalibrating my career and what that next step
Mm.
was, even when I moved to a new city and was just going through the hardships with that, it was those key relationships,
Mm.
those deep relationships and those deep connections that really got me through. And it had nothing to do with, the fact that someone was posturing themselves as more senior to me,
Mm.
or, hey, there's something transactional that I can get out of
Mm.
um, this connection. It was always based on some type of mutual understanding, mutual respect, um, and understanding of all of the pieces of me,
Mm.
in helping me to get to that next step. I operate not just in work, definitely in work, but not just in work. I always operate at the intersection of my my ethnicity, my race, my faith,
Mm.
my gender. I'm always at the intersection of that. So I never think of networking or building or establishing a relationship as just one piece of the pie. You have
Yeah.
to understand all of those things that I bring to that relationship. And that's what I look to you,
Mm.
or whoever that other person would be. So I say all that to say it's so important to understand the value of building relationships and seeing that it's more than just some type of transactional process when you're drawing on that, because you never
Mm.
know who that person will be. You never know who's watching, and you never know who will help you or who you will help as we go through this ebbs and flows of life.
Oh,
um
yeah.
100%, you
Yeah,
know.
and one thing I love that. I love the tips about how to view relationships, how to even, kind of shift what networking means, because that often has a really like negative connotation for people. It feels forced,
Hmm.
versus thinking about like, how can I find connection? How can I find community in my comeback process?
Hmm.
And the other thing that makes me think of is, I was working with a few different clients, and sometimes there's this orientation around, well, if there's a relationship if it's sticky, or if it feels hard, or you're feeling like somebody's questioning you or like pushing on you, that you just kind of want to walk away and say it's not a fit. And sometimes I think the actual opposite is true, which is sometimes the hardest fought relationships can be the most surprising, where
Yeah,
you can stand your ground, where you can have a conversation about the differences, and then all of a sudden you could have maybe the biggest supporter in your
agree.
network, because you didn't give up on it too soon, or see it as a lost cause without really exploring further. Um,
100%. I've been through that. We're not going to go into details. You know those stories. I would even add on to that. I think it's a mutual. How would I word this? That also plays into that coach versus mentor type,
mm,
navigation, and you know, not it's not always a formal relationship. You don't always have a formal, or I have mentors that wouldn't necessarily frame themselves as my
mm,
mentors, but it is very much a mentor mentee relationship. um Going back to why it's not so much a networking connection, it's a relationship that has been formed on a mutual respect, understanding my life experiences, what I came through, understanding my goals and where I want to be.
mm,
So that way the measure of success you understand, because I think we all can relate
mm.
to having unsolicited feedback from unintended mentors. That's a whole nother conversation, for sure. But just having that mutual understanding, and the entry point for that
Mm,
relationship really needs to be an equitable one. So
mm,
that way it feels more of a mutual reciprocity. So in
mm,
those situations where it's almost the most unlikely supporters, it has come through an entry point of, okay, I'm not posturing in a position as a mentor of someone who has authority, or this this perspective of, I have a knowledge that you don't have, and you need to know this based
mm,
on a measure of success that I have. Once you take that out of the equation, and we're both on equal
mm,
playing field, and you understand that I am receiving from you and you're learning
mm.
from me at the same time, those can end up being the biggest supporters in some of the situations that you would have never thought that you'd be in. And I have felt that, and I've experienced it. I continue to experience it time and time again.
Mm. So that makes me wonder, like, I mean, you have so much rich experience with navigating difficult situations, with overcoming setback after setback, and adversity and whammy after whammy. And like, I'm just curious, like, what what is the biggest advice? Like, what kind of game plan do you set for yourself? Is it like this conscious game plan? Like, are you kind of in flow with yourself? Like, what do you want people to know about, coming back strong from setback?
So I would say several things. First, one, no, and it's not just, like I said, it's not just about the job. It could be any situation in your life. We've all gone through multiple bumps in the road in every facet, whether it's relationships, work, you name it. I think it's always understanding what your grounding is and what your center is. Understanding your mission, your purpose, and who you want to be. And the way you exorcise that comes out through those different aspects of your life. And that's really a mind shift when you think about it. It's a total mental shift, because now when you do that, your confidence, right? Your strength isn't the employer that's giving you the paycheck, or it's not the car that you drive, or the building that you live in, or the city that you live in, or the title that you have, all of those superficial measures of success. And for me, once I understood that these are my passion points, this is my purpose, and this is my mission, the job can change, the city can change, all of those material things can change. But the way I exercise those points that make me whole, my superpowers, always remains the same. And I show up as that in no matter what I do. It could be in me writing a blog post just for myself. It could be me cooking a dinner for friends. It could be me having a Bible study with someone, or kicking off a design project for work. All of those things are just assets in which, or facets in which I exercise my superpowers. And that I will always have. No one can ever take that from you. So once you understand that, the whole recovery and the comeback and just building back up your confidence, all of that is completely recentered, because the biggest takeaway that you will always have is you had it all along. You had it all along.
Yes, I love that.
Yes.
It never went away. It was just
All
it
along.
buried. It just kind of got
Yes.
buried. Oh,
You had
the
it all
best.
along. So that's number one, just understanding who you are and what you bring to the table, and all of those things that you do. That's how you just express and exercise your superpower. Number two would, it within that, understanding how you want to show up and be present in your life. And that for me was a big learning. It was a big shift in my mindset and my lifestyle when I went through the layoff and had to go, find a new job and just kind of and change careers, completely change industries. For me, like I said at the beginning, those points, those sacred spaces for me, my faith and my family, I went into it protecting that. Like I went into those initial conversations saying, this is, it's important for me to be able to see my family when they're in town or when I'm with them. I want to make sure that I protect the space, that when I'm with my congregation or when I'm having my Bible studies or different things like that, that's sacred time. That's my time. I'm 100% in all those other areas, but those are the things that feed me, and that fuel me. And how, on the other hand, how I want to show up and be present in all of those sacred spaces, because those never have changed. Those have always been my special sources that kind of nurtured me and fueled me my whole life. That's never changed. But how I showed up in those spaces and in those relationships has varied depending on the job or the project, or, hey, I'm having dinner with my mom and dad or my brother or sister, but I'm distracted looking at my phone, checking emails or different things like that. We've all done it. And I had to really evaluate my life, how I wanted to show up and be present for the things that I've always said have mattered to me. And I needed to make sure, to those people and those things, that are they receiving my intention of letting them know that this is important and it matters to me. So the second thing is, evaluating who do you want to be and how do you want to show up? What do you want your legacy to be? When I always go back, in our leadership course, remember for the WLC, we always ask the question, when you're 90 years old, and you wake up that morning and you're having breakfast or you're having dinner, who are the people that are at that table with you? And when you understand that, or where you made those connections, people that are at the table with you, or how you had those connections there, that's when you realize and you have that mind shift. Am I nurturing those spaces? Am I nurturing those relationships? Or am I nurturing those people? Do they know that they're important to me? And are my actions showing that? So that would be the second thing, how you're showing up. The third and most important, this is huge, really important to me. I used to think, and I don't know if that's maybe like school, that you know, like school would always teach us that. I used to think that the most successful people in life were always the one that worked the hardest. They turned in their homework, or they did the best on their projects and all that stuff like that. You just had to be the smartest and the quickest. I thought it was all a meritocracy. And that's not the case. You can't go it alone. You can't. You need a support system. And for many people, that support system can look like a coach. It can look like a mentor. I think it's important to understand the difference between a coach and a mentor. A coach is someone who approaches giving you clarity to a situation through the perspective of you as the mentee have the answer. And it could be maybe a Socratic method where they ask you these questions to help you draw out the answers. Whereas a mentor is someone who, you know, helps you get clarity on a situation or how to navigate certain experiences through their insight or their own life experiences, and kind of sheds that light for you. For me, I've used both at different times, you know, depending on the situations that I was in. I feel like for me, mentors have been more of an organic relationship. You know some of the stories of the things that I've encountered. I always know that the things that I've gone through, whether it's a professional setting or a personal setting, have been extreme or intense. Whenever I would say something like, yeah, I'm really, really frustrated. I'm really confused how to navigate this particular situation. I would describe it, and the other person on the other end of the conversation would give me this face like, "What? Wait, that's not normal." So a lot of times that mentor relationship, it could be a peer or it could be someone who, like, this is not normal. This is, you know what? I don't know what to do. I don't know what advice to give you, but I've always appreciated someone who said, listen, friend, I'm going to hold your hand. I'm going to walk you through it. I don't know what the right scenario is, but I'm going to be here walking through this with you to the other side.
Yes.
And sometimes that's what you need. But that was one of the biggest learnings. The most successful executives that I've worked with in these companies that I've encountered, that I've partnered with, that I've reported into, one of the biggest things that I had to learn was they all have coaches and mentors too.
They got support systems too, okay?
I was like, that's like the thing that they don't teach you in school. Like, you know, it's always this, you're special, you're unique, and you can do it on your own. And that's not the case. You need support, and that's okay. That's a good thing. So just understanding that, having a clear ask, having a clear ask on what you're looking for in those relationships or those mentors or those coaches. So you're clear on what your goal is, your objective, your measure of success, and your ask that you want to draw on from that person. Those are the keys right there. For me. That was my that was always been my measure and my method, my process for kind of navigating a lot of the murky situations that I've had to go through. But yeah, those mentors and those coaches have been invaluable. And I take pride in the fact that, you know, coming through the other side of a lot of these situations, I always go out of my way when I see the signs, because when you go through it, you see it. And being able to approach someone and just say, hey, listen, I would love to just share my experience, or if I could offer some insight, because I want you to go through, you know, a better outcome than what I had initially experienced. That's always been my goal.
Wow. Well, I hope that people listening are definitely taking notes, because you just dropped so much knowledge that I'm just like, there is so much that I want to follow up with you on. And I just want to invite also everybody who's joining, like if you have any questions,
I love it.
feel free to ask. Ashley here is the expert on comebacks for sure. Um, I think what you mentioned, you really talk a lot about support, and I know you're passionate about that. And I think it's especially important right now because I see that so many people hold themselves back from getting the support that they need, because they stand in their own way.
Mhm.
Um, Whether
Yes,
it's
yes,
right, like,
yes.
yeah, I mean, and I think we can easily use excuses of finance. We can
Yes.
find these easy scapegoats for why we're not giving ourselves what we need, especially in the time that we're currently living in, right, where finances are even more ever present and challenging for so many of us. Um, and and at the end of the day, um, to me, the comeback time is the best time to invest in yourself, because this is when you have a crack in your seeing things differently and seeing yourself differently and coming back to yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big theme that you talked about, coming back to yourself. It's like, come back, you are the anchor of your life.
Mhm.
And coming back to that is what will propel you forward. Um,
100%.
and I also think that what I heard you say, and what I also believe, is that sometimes coming back to yourself, you need the support. It's not always a just get quiet with yourself and listen. Sometimes you need support in coming back to yourself because you've you don't know how to navigate that anymore.
Right, right. Or and sometimes, at least for me, I everyone's experience is different. I never felt that sense
Mm.
of I completely have lost myself.
Mm.
And I'll probably attribute that to being Gwen and Daniel Abdullah's daughter. I am an Abdullah. But I will always say, I can definitely say that there have been so many situations. And a lot of it, like, we're not going to get into too much detail, but a lot of it you've seen,
Yeah.
you've heard me kind of recount these stories, like, oh my God, that is so not normal. Those times where it completely rocks your confidence, and it feels like a punch in the gut.
Mm.
Sometimes you can go through situations where it can totally rock your
Mm.
faith. And I think the question is, what's going to make you whole? So that way
Mm.
you put all of those pieces back together, and you are not walking into something where you're settling into it, but
Mm.
you are not leaving anything on the table, and you are showing up as your whole self.
Yes.
And for everyone, those pieces, those building blocks, those sacred spaces are different. For mine,
Mm.
like I said, it's always been my faith and my family. Um, but once you figure that out, that is going to be the
Mm.
cornerstone of a lot of the uncertainty that you may have in navigating those things. It's going to be the litmus test of whatever new opportunity, new relationship, new experience you go into, is going to respect that and is going to protect that. Because I knew that once I came through a particular situation, I wasn't going to let it happen again. Right.
Mm.
Right. Making sure that you learn from those experiences. Um, and also too, which I think is so important, there's things, I think we live in a society where you need to have that support system to help you unlearn
Mm.
a lot of those um, behaviors that don't serve you. um, I just to give an example for the people that are tuned in, I have received so much unsolicited but well-intentioned feedback that now I think, in this light of these past couple weeks and just the social landscape of what's happening in the country, people are now realizing that people have been saying things, especially in a corporate setting, that have been steeped in bias,
Mm.
people not understanding cultural sensitivities, and how that can completely
Mm.
thwart your career trajectory. Um,
Mm.
Really unlearning that. and cutting through all of that and seeing through those murky waters. It was my close friends, my family, my relationships, my congregation, my mentors that really kind of helped me cut through that, and being able to stand up for myself even to this day in a lot of those situations that repeat themselves. Because a lot of times you go through situations, just society, life, the situation or the particular complication or problem can repeat itself, just different characters. So the measure of success, now, learning from those experiences, unlearning from those experiences or those behaviors that didn't serve you better, the measure of success can look like something simple, like standing up for yourself, or, hey, you know what, I'm going to voice my opinion, or, it can be a variable of different things, but the measure of success may look completely different as you get older and you go through those life experiences. And that's a big takeaway. And it's an unburdening, really. It really is very freeing once you grasp that and once you understand that.
Oh man, yeah. I so appreciate what you're saying, especially, like you're saying, this particular context and the particular things that, people of color, women of color, or people of any kind of, group right now that's like marginalized or what have you, have added challenges, not only in the comeback process, right? Because there's so much to overcome sometimes. But it seems also there's so much more need for tools for how you stay grounded in yourself. And it really makes me think of this idea of feedback, right? It's so huge. And I speak with, a lot of my clients have like, they receive feedback and in their careers, in their lives, from so many different places, and it gets internalized. And
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
it becomes this extra thing that we have to like release within ourselves,
Yes.
myself included. And the thing that I always say is, and a reframe for feedback is that, and it comes from Tara Moore's Playing Big, which is feedback tells you more about the person giving feedback than it does tell you about yourself.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
And then you have a choice to say, do I care about having a good relationship or an easy relationship with this person? And do I want to adjust anything based on that feedback? Or do I ignore it? And
Yeah.
also the source is so important. We take feedback from people we don't even respect sometimes. And we're like,
And I think that's the key. I think it's, understanding that, and that was a big learning for me as I got older. I had to learn, like, you know what? Don't accept or internalize feedback from someone you would never ask for advice. you know, and I appreciate that sometimes unsolicited feedback is great. Feedback, really, it's a gift. I think it's worded improperly. It really should feed forward or something, right? It really is a gift. But I think it has to come from two places. It both, and when I'm giving it and when I'm receiving it. Is the person giving this unsolicited advice understanding what my objectives, my outcome, and does the person understand me and my cultural sensitivities? So, for an example, I've seen, and we've heard these stories where people have given feedback, especially to people of color, things like, our hair. Hey, my hair doesn't look professional, or the tone of my voice, and those are things. If it was well intentioned, but you don't realize how that can be so damaging because it's so steeped in bias, and it projects this burdening that we keep and then we internalize, and you can hold on to that for years to come, and it can really hold you back. So that was a big learning for me. Never accept feedback from someone you would never ask for advice. And that goes back to seeking out the right mentors. When you're looking for a mentor, first of all, you can have mentors for different things, right? It could be, I have mentors that have helped me navigate the corporate politics of a particular organization or a particular division. I've had mentors and still have mentors that help me navigate through cultural nuances and different things like that. Peer mentors. You can have mentors for different things and in different ways, and the relationship is always different, but mutually reciprocal. But it's very important that in establishing that relationship, you look at, why is that person someone that you value or someone that you want to be a mentor? You look at their behavior. What is their reputation? What is their legacy like? How do they compose themselves in a business environment or whatever that is? Is that something that I want to emulate or reflect? And if it's not, your feedback is not something that I'm looking to internalize or hold on to. That understanding that will help you snatch back all of your power. And that has been a game changer, because for years I have gone home, spending long days in the office or long days at work and just thinking, okay, well, maybe if I work extra hard on this project, or if I volunteer to do this, or if I learn this particular skill, I can make that person value me more. And we attach our identity and our confidence and our worth to these unimportant measures of success. Once you unburden yourself from that, there is a freedom from that, and it is a whole new authenticity and a whole new you that shows up in everything that you do. That is how you pull back your fears.
Oh, I love that. It really makes me think of, you talked about protection, and a word I use is boundary, right? So creating
Yes.
boundaries for yourself. And also, when we're vulnerable, when we're in times where we're like, we are turning our lives around, we're transforming every day, we're working on our comeback. Those are the most vulnerable times in our lives. And so it's really important who you're letting in, who you're sharing your hopes and dreams with, who you're being vulnerable with, because you
Yes.
can't just be vulnerable with anybody.
Anybody.
They have to have earned your trust, right? Like,
Thank you.
because because I think sometimes we, you know, when we're not selective and then we get hurt, we then reach out even less for support, which is not the right thing. Usually to then pull back because you're obviously needing support. That's why you're talking to people. Maybe you're choosing people that aren't in a place to be there for you. And
Or who don't have
unfortunately,
the freedom of speech.
yeah, right.
To do that either.
And
Yes.
unfortunately, sometimes that can be the people that we wish it was coming from.
Yes.
Sometimes we wish it would be our family, but we can't go to our family. Or we wish it could be the person we admire so much, but like it can't be them because they are maybe closed-minded, or they may be giving bad advice because they project
Or
their own fears.
or they could be dealing with their own burdens and their
Yes.
own weights on themselves. I think it's especially important, especially during a time like this, where everyone is just navigating the complexities and the heaviness, that heaviness of dealing with a global pandemic.
Yeah.
You can't expect the world of other people because everyone's just trying to survive
Yeah.
too. And just understanding that people, you should always position people to want to give, whether it's insight or support or advice, come from a place of willingness and joy and fullness, right?
Yeah.
It should never be another burden on that person. And once you understand that sometimes we may have put people, whether it's family, friends, bosses, on pedestals, it's almost unfairness to that other person. You have to recognize that they're dealing with their own struggles and their own pressures and their own burdens. And once you humanize that, that helps you put a lot into perspective, whether it was ill-received or ill-intended feedback, or boundaries being crossed, however that may look, that tends to release a burden from you, of holding on and internalizing hurt or any other damage that was completely unintended. And just really understanding that we're all going through our own challenges.
Yeah, I love that. You know, it's like who, I mean, another way that I kind of use that, say that is like, who can hold space for you?
Yeah.
And I love that, and I know you're a super supporter of getting the support that you need. You talked about mentorship and the difference with coaching. Thank you. I feel like I'm going to hire you
Yes.
as like my publicity, but I know that it's coming from your heart and what you want people to know. And I think the other thing I want to add is that when so many people are going through hard times, that working with folks that's what they do, right? Like
Mhm.
that, as you know, for example, I'm a coach, right? That's what I do is I hold space and I hold heavy emotions. And I think that what I've seen too, what people hold themselves back from getting a coach or receiving coaching until they have it together. You
Yeah, no.
know, versus
Yeah.
like I'm a freaking hot mess. I need support, and that's exactly what a coach can hand. I can sit there and handle somebody crying for an hour because that's what I do and help
Yeah.
them through that, you know. Not a therapist, that's totally different, but how can I help transform the heaviness that's going through?
And
Um,
you know what? To your point, for me, what was a game changer when I realized 10 years ago that some of the most successful people, they have, I mean,
right.
CEOs, like they have their own executive coaches
Yes.
and executive mentors. Once I realized, and I was like, why don't people talk? It's like, I don't know why it's some
Mm,
secret once you get to the C-suite, like, oh, okay, and here are the coaches, executive coaching for public speaking and different things like that. I want to normalize that and I want to
yes.
talk about it. Like everyone has a coach or a mentor. That's normal. I personally, to complement what you're saying, for me, once I learned that, and once I had career coaches, and once I had mentors to kind of help me navigate some of those complexities of
Yeah.
the different jobs that I was doing, the industries that I had been bouncing around, once I had that, I had the
Mm,
tools in my toolbox
mm,
to be able to put those boundaries in place or protecting those sacred spaces or understanding what my process was to kind of help me, okay, Ashley, this is going to be a really rough situation or this is a big complication. So that way I didn't get to that rock bottom point.
mm,
So even you saw it, when I went through my layoff with my previous company, I wasn't just, I thought I would be. I thought I
mm,
would be totally distraught. I thought it would be a basket case. I wasn't. And that's one of the things that I want to share
mm,
with as many people as I can, especially in this situation, because one of the unlearnings that I had to learn 10 years ago was my identity wasn't tied to my title or the company or that particular job. I'm
mm,
always Ashley.
mm.
Ashley's always
Yes.
I'm always Ashley. You're gonna get this no matter what I do. Whether you see me in the grocery store or if you see me at a concert, whatever, I'm always Ashley. Um, but once I understood that my identity wasn't tied to that,
Mm,
um, it's still a punch in the gut. It's still a punch in the arm, and it still rocks your confidence. It does, and that's okay. And it's okay to accept that and admit that you experience it. Sometimes you have to sit in
mm,
it for a second, but you don't wallow in it. Because for me, that was one of the most liberating and best things that happened to me because I was able to reposition my
mm,
life to protect those boundaries and those priorities. So that way, everything that I did after that was with the understanding my name is Ashley Abdullah. This is my family. This is my congregation. This is my faith. These are the things that are important to me. You've got me 150%, but these are my boundaries and these are my special areas that make me me and that give me that special superpowers for when I show up for you. So I say all that to say, do the work and reach out to get those tools in your toolbox even before that, because rock bottom
mm,
won't feel like this
mm.
place of despair once you do that work and you go through that process. And that is so important. People think losing your job or going through these things can totally knock you off, and it's how do I get through this? And it doesn't have to be that way. It can
Mm,
actually be a gift. It could be a freeing opportunity. It could be a pivot, setting yourself up for that life that you may have always wanted, or getting all of those things that you dreamed of, and coming from a place of joy and pure happiness and protecting all of those things that are sacred to you. But you have to be whole. You have to be clear on what you want, and you have to be your full authentic self in order to be able to take advantage of that opportunity when it's given. Because if you're not ready for it, it's going to pass you by.
I just can't, I don't even, it's just so profound what you're saying, and I hope that the people that are watching can really absorb it, because it's what you're talking about. It sounds so simple, and yet it is so difficult in a world where we reward the doing versus the being still and finding your own clarity. And becoming grounded. Like, that is the real, I always say, like, that is the real work of our lives, you know. And you know, I think the other thing I want to say is what you were talking about reminds me of a phrase that actually, my, you know, Lauren's on the call. She's the one that taught me this, but
Lauren?
Yeah.
Hi, Lauren.
You know, it's like, if we can look at situations and life as happening for us versus to us, how could that shift our mindset to say, even in the darkest moments, right before the comeback, can we hold space? Can we accept or believe that this is happening for us, and the light is there? Even when we can't see it, even when it's cloudy and storming, the sun is still there, and that life is happening for us. And these tools that you shared are the tools of comebacks. So I'm so glad that you shared that with us. And I know we're going to get cut off in just 2 minutes here from LinkedIn. But where can people find you if they want to know more about your journey and get more of your beautiful light?
Oh, thank you. Yes, please reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. Ashley, I use my full name, Ashley Eden Abdullah. But yeah, my intention is to just kind of shed light on what I went through, the tools that I used. So that way it may seem dark, but it really doesn't, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be this hard, you know, crushing experience. It really can be positioning yourself to the life you've always wanted. And anything that I can do to support or make introductions in my network, or just some resources, please reach out to me, because that is what I wish I had someone to do for me this side of 10, 15 years ago.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, and I echo that as well. If anybody wants to reach out, by all means, you can find me at toscadimateo.com or email me at breakthrough@toscadimateo.com. Ashley, you've had so many fans on here. I hope you've been seeing the feed as it's been coming, and I know that you have helped so many people in your journey, and you continue to give back. And you have an abundance mindset. Like, you don't come from a belief of lack. You come from a belief of, I have everything I need. I know who I am, and I will find a way. And I just see that as, yeah, you always find a way, girl. I love it. So I just want to remind people that you have everything that you need right now to come back. So tap into that. You had it all along, right? Your superpowers never went anywhere. So tap in. And again, Ashley, thank you so much for joining for my only second Talk About It Tuesday, and I look forward to many more conversations with you, Ashley.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone.
My pleasure. My pleasure. All right. Talk to you soon.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Good luck with the comebacks.